Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Valiant, staring at the empty space where New Haven Colony should be sending signals. For 3 days, nothing had come through the communication channels. No daily reports, no cargo requests, no routine check-ins, just silence. "Sir, we're getting close to the Kepler system," said Dr. Lisa Chen from her station. She was the ship's communications officer, and she looked worried. "Still no response from New Haven," Jake nodded. He had been hoping the colony's transmitters were just broken. Maybe a solar storm had knocked out their equipment. Maybe they were too busy with harvest season to send regular updates. But deep down, he knew something was wrong. The UES Valiant was a patrol ship not built for war. It carried a crew of 200 people whose job was to check on the outer colonies and help with emergencies. Jake had been doing this job for 8 years, and he had never seen a colony go completely silent. "Dr. Chen, try scanning all frequencies again," Jake ordered. "Maybe they switched to emergency channels." Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her controls. She had been trying to reach New Haven for hours, but she tried again. The speakers filled with static and empty noise. No voices, no signals, nothing. Lieutenant Kevin Blake walked up to Jake. Kevin was young but smart, and he led the ship's small team of soldiers. "Commander, I've been thinking about this," Kevin said quietly. New Haven had 50,000 people. That's a big colony. They wouldn't all just stop talking at once. Jake knew Kevin was right. New Haven wasn't some tiny outpost with a few dozen farmers. It was one of humanity's biggest and most successful colonies. The planet had good soil, clean water, and perfect weather for growing food. Families had moved there from all over human space to start new lives. "Sir," Lisa called out suddenly. "I'm picking up something. It's very weak, but there's a signal coming from the planet." Jake hurried to her station. "What kind of signal?" "It's a recording," Lisa said, her face pale. "It's repeating over and over. The message is only a few minutes long, but it's been playing for 3 days. Put it on speakers." The bridge filled with crackling static, and then a woman's voice came through. She sounded scared and out of breath. "This is Colony Administrator Helen Brooks on New Haven. We are under attack. Unknown ships appeared in orbit 6 hours ago. They destroyed our defense platforms without warning. They're landing troops now. We tried to surrender, but they're not listening. They're not taking prisoners. They're killing everyone. Men, women, children, everyone. The attackers are not human. They have energy weapons that turn buildings to glass. We're barricaded in the command center, but they're breaking through the doors. If anyone receives this message, tell Earth what happened here. Tell them we never fired first. Tell them we tried to surrender. Tell them." The recording cut off with sounds of explosions and screaming. The bridge was completely quiet. Jake felt sick to his stomach. Lisa was crying quietly at her station. Even Kevin, who was trained for combat, looked shocked. "Play it again," Jake said softly. They listened to Helen Brooks's final message 3 more times. Each time it got harder to hear. This woman had been trying to protect her people. She had tried to surrender, but someone had killed them all anyway. "Commander," Kevin said, "we need to be careful. If there are hostile ships in the system, we might be flying into a trap." Jake thought about this. The Valiant wasn't built for fighting. If enemy warships were still near New Haven, his crew wouldn't stand a chance. But he had to know what happened. He had to see for himself. "Take us in slowly," Jake ordered. "Full scans of the system. If you detect any ships, we jump away immediately." The Valiant moved carefully toward New Haven. The planet appeared on their main screen as a small blue dot. As they got closer, Jake could see that something was very wrong. The planet looked different. There were dark patches where the cities should be. "No ships in the system," reported the sensor officer. "But Commander, you need to see this." The main screen zoomed in on New Haven. Where the capital city of Harbortown used to be, there was only black glass. The entire city had been melted. Other cities showed the same destruction. Farmland that had been green and healthy was now brown and dead. "The orbital stations?" Jake asked. "Debris," the sensor officer replied. "All of them destroyed." Jake stared at the ruined planet. 50,000 people had lived here just a few days ago. Now they were all dead. Men, women, children, grandparents, babies. "All gone. Take us down," Jake ordered. "We need to land and search for survivors." "Sir," Kevin said carefully, "the radiation levels are very high. Whatever weapons they used left the surface dangerous. We have protective suits. We're going down." The Valiant landed near what used to be Harbortown. Jake, Kevin, and a team of 6 soldiers put on heavy protective suits and walked out onto the planet's surface. The air smelled like burning metal and death. Where Harbor Town's main street used to be, there was now a river of black glass. Buildings had been melted and twisted into impossible shapes. Jake saw the remains of a playground where children used to play. The swings were now pools of melted metal. They searched for 3 hours but found no survivors. The attack had been complete and thorough. Whoever did this had wanted to make sure that nothing lived. Near the ruins of the colony's command center, Kevin found something important. It was a black box recorder, the kind that stored all the colony's communications and data. The box was damaged but still working. Back on the ship, Lisa connected the black box to their computers. The data told a horrible story. The attackers had been aliens called the Zephyrian Hegemony. Jake had heard of them before. They were supposed to be neutral toward humans, not friendly, but not enemies either. The recording showed that the Zephyrian ships had appeared without warning. They had destroyed the orbital defenses in minutes. Then they had begun landing troops and systematically killing everyone they found. No prisoners were taken. No mercy was shown. The final recording was from Helen Brooks herself. Jake watched as she and her staff tried to contact the Zephyrian commander to surrender. The alien's response was simple. "Your species is marked for extinction." Jake turned off the recording. His hands were shaking with anger. This hadn't been a military operation. It had been murder. Mass murder of innocent people who had never hurt anyone. "Set course for Earth," Jake ordered. "Maximum speed." "What do we tell them?" Lisa asked. Jake looked at the image of New Haven on the screen one more time. "We tell them that we're at war." Fleet Admiral Marcus Webb sat at the head of the long table in the Solar Defense Council chamber. Around him sat the most powerful people in human space. President Amanda Foster sat to his right, her face pale as she read the report from New Haven. To his left was Intelligence Director Colonel Ryan Murphy, who had been analyzing the attack data for 2 days straight. The room was quiet except for the sound of pages turning. Everyone was reading Jake Morrison's report about what he found at New Haven Colony. The pictures were the worst part. Images of melted cities, burned farmland, and empty streets where 50,000 people used to live. "This is genocide," said Captain Claire Rodriguez, slamming her hand on the table. She commanded the UES Hammer, one of the fleet's biggest warships. They didn't just attack a military base. They murdered families. They killed children. President Foster looked up from the report. "Captain Rodriguez, we need to be careful about how we respond. The Zephyrian Hegemony has technology we don't fully understand. They have more ships than we do. If we start a war, we might lose." "We might lose anyway," Colonel Murphy said quietly. He activated a holographic display that showed a map of human space. Red dots marked human colonies and blue areas showed Zephyrian territory. "Our intelligence suggests that New Haven wasn't random. They chose it carefully." Admiral Webb studied the map. "What do you mean?" "New Haven was isolated," Murphy explained. "Far from our main shipping routes, with only one patrol ship assigned to check on it. It was the perfect target for testing our response. They wanted to see what we would do. And now they know," said Captain Rodriguez. "They know we found the bodies. They know we're talking about it right now. What's our next move?" President Foster stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see Earth's orbital shipyards where new vessels were being built. "The diplomatic option is still open. We could demand an explanation through the Galactic Council. We could ask for reparations." "They won't pay," Murphy said, "and they won't apologize. Our sources in Zephyrian space say their leadership considers this a successful operation. They're planning to hit more colonies." The room fell silent. Admiral Webb had been afraid of this. One attack could be explained away as a misunderstanding or an accident. But if the Zephyrians were planning more attacks, it meant they wanted to destroy humanity completely. "How many more colonies are at risk?" Webb asked. Murphy highlighted several red dots on the map. 12 colonies are in similar positions to New Haven. Isolated, lightly defended, full of civilians. If they attack all of them, we're looking at 500,000 dead. Captain Rodriguez stood up. "Then we stop them now before they can attack again." "With what?" President Foster asked, turning back to the table. "The Zephyrian fleet is 3 times larger than ours. Their weapons are more advanced. Military experts say we would need at least 5 years to build enough ships to match them." "We don't have 5 years," Webb said, "and we don't need to match them ship for ship. We need to hit them so hard that they never want to fight us again. The president shook her head. Admiral, you're talking about starting a war against a superior enemy. The casualties would be enormous. Webb looked around the table. He had been in the military for 30 years. He had fought pirates and rebels and hostile aliens before, but he had never faced anything like this. The Zephyrians hadn't just attacked human territory. They had committed mass murder. Madam President, Webb said slowly, with respect, the war has already started. The Zephyrians started it when they killed 50,000 innocent people. The only question is whether we fight back or wait for them to kill more. Captain Rodriguez nodded. The Admiral is right. Every day we wait, more families die. My ship is ready for combat. My crew is ready. Mine too, said Captain Sam Collins, who commanded a destroyer squadron. He had been quiet during most of the meeting, but now he spoke up. My people are asking why we're not already on our way to Zephyrian space. President Foster looked worried. If we attack them, other alien species might see us as the aggressors. We could end up fighting more than just the Zephyrians. Or they might see us as strong, Murphy said. Right now, the galaxy thinks humans are weak. They think we're just farmers and traders who can't defend ourselves. Maybe it's time to change that opinion. Webb stood up and walked to the holographic map. He pointed at the blue areas that showed Zephyrian territory. Colonel Murphy, what do we know about their military structure? They have 3 main fleet bases, Murphy replied, highlighting them on the map. Zerion Prime is their command center. It coordinates all military operations in this sector. If we could take it out, we could cripple their ability to launch coordinated attacks. How well defended is it? Very well, but they're not expecting an attack. They think we're too scared to fight back. Webb smiled for the first time since the meeting began. Then we have an advantage. What about ground forces? Their armies are professional, but they've never fought humans before. They're used to fighting aliens who follow predictable battle plans. They might not be ready for our tactics. Captain Rodriguez leaned forward. What kind of tactics? Human tactics, Webb said. We don't fight like other species. We adapt quickly. We take risks they wouldn't take. We fight with emotion as well as logic. President Foster sat back down. Admiral, I understand your anger. We're all angry, but starting a war based on emotion is dangerous. This isn't about emotion, Webb replied. This is about survival. If we don't respond to New Haven, the Zephyrians will know they can attack us without consequences. More colonies will die. Eventually, they'll attack Earth itself. The room was quiet for a long moment. Everyone was thinking about what Webb had said. Finally, President Foster spoke. If we do this, how many ships would you need? Webb looked at the map again. All of them. Admiral, that would leave Earth defenseless. No, Webb said. It would make Earth safe. If we destroy the Zephyrian fleet, no one will threaten Earth for a very long time. Captain Collins cleared his throat. Admiral, even with our entire fleet, we're still outnumbered. Numbers aren't everything, Webb replied. They have more ships, but we have something they don't. We have a reason to fight. Those people on New Haven were our people. They were farmers and teachers and children who never hurt anyone. The Zephyrians killed them anyway. Webb walked back to his chair but didn't sit down. Every human in the fleet has seen the recordings from New Haven. They've heard Helen Brooks's final message. They know she tried to surrender and the Zephyrians killed her anyway. My people want justice. Justice or revenge? President Foster asked. Both, Webb said simply. Murphy activated a new display showing fleet positions. If we're going to do this, we need to move quickly. Our sources say the Zephyrians are planning their next attack for 3 weeks from now. Which colony? Webb asked. Cedar Falls, 20,000 people. Webb made his decision. Madam President, I'm requesting permission to mobilize the entire Terran Defense Fleet. Operation name, Retribution. President Foster looked around the table. She saw determination on every face. Finally, she nodded. Permission granted. Admiral Webb, you have command of all human military forces. Bring our people home safely, Webb saluted. Yes, Madam President. And when we're done, the galaxy will know that attacking humans has consequences. As the meeting ended, Captain Rodriguez approached Webb. Admiral, the fleet will be ready in 48 hours. Make it 24, Webb replied. Those people on Cedar Falls are counting on us. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zerion system, like an iron fist punching through reality. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching as 200 human warships formed up around his massive dreadnought. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. "All ships report ready for combat," announced Captain Sam Collins over the communication channel. His destroyer squadron was already moving toward the planet, their weapons charged and ready. "Remember, people," Webb broadcast to the entire fleet, "we're not here to conquer. We're here to send a message. The message is simple. You don't get to murder our families and walk away." On the planet below, Zephyrian military commanders were scrambling to respond. Their early warning systems had detected the human fleet, but they couldn't believe what they were seeing. According to their intelligence, humans were peaceful traders who avoided conflict. This massive armada didn't match their data at all. "Sir," said Commander Beth Turner from her position at the sensor station, "we're detecting 47 Zephyrian warships in orbit around Zerion Prime. They're moving to intercept us." Webb nodded. The Zephyrians had more ships in this system, but they were scattered around the planet. His fleet was concentrated and ready for battle. "Captain Stone, take your bomber wings and hit their orbital defense platforms. Commander Turner, begin jamming their communications." Captain Alex Stone's voice crackled over the radio from his bomber. "Roger that, Admiral. Beginning our attack run now." The space around Zerion Prime lit up with weapons fire as the battle began. The Zephyrians fought with precise, calculated movements, following standard military tactics that had worked against other alien species for centuries. But humans didn't fight like other species. Commander Nick Taylor led the fighter squadrons in a wild attack that confused the Zephyrian pilots. Instead of maintaining formation and following predictable patterns, the human fighters spread out and attacked from unexpected angles. They used their ship's speed and maneuverability in ways the Zephyrians had never seen before. "Target their engine sections," Taylor called to his pilots. "Don't try to destroy them cleanly. Cripple them and move on to the next target." The Zephyrian admiral in charge of the defense watched in growing alarm as his ships were systematically disabled. These humans fought with a ferocity that defied military logic. When their fighters took damage instead of retreating to safety, they rammed their damaged ships into Zephyrian vessels. "What are they doing?" the Zephyrian admiral asked his tactical officer. "Why are they sacrificing their ships?" "I don't know, sir. This isn't in any of our tactical manuals." Meanwhile, Major Tony Parker's marine transport ships were approaching the planet's surface. The orbital defenses were being torn apart by Captain Stone's bombers, creating gaps in the defensive line. "Listen up, Marines," Parker announced to his troops. "The Zephyrians down there think they're tough because they can murder civilians. Let's show them what happens when they face real soldiers." The first wave of marine dropships landed in the middle of Zerion Prime's capital city. The Zephyrian ground forces had been expecting a traditional siege, with human forces landing far from the city and slowly advancing. Instead, the Marines landed directly in the city center and began fighting immediately. Colonel Rachel Davis led the second wave of troops, targeting the military command complex. The Zephyrians had built their defenses to stop conventional attacks, but humans didn't use conventional tactics. "Blow the support columns," Davis ordered her engineers. "Don't try to fight through their defenses. Bring the whole building down." The Zephyrian defenders watched in shock as entire buildings collapsed around them. They had expected humans to follow the rules of warfare that other species observed. But humans wrote their own rules. Back in space, Admiral Webb's flagship was engaged in direct combat with the Zephyrian command ship. The alien vessel was larger and had stronger shields, but Webb had something the Zephyrian admiral didn't have: anger. "All weapons, focus fire on their bridge section," Webb ordered. "I want to have a conversation with their commander." The Retribution's massive guns pounded the Zephyrian ship until its shields failed. Then Webb did something unexpected. Instead of destroying the crippled vessel, he opened a communication channel. The Zephyrian admiral appeared on the main screen. He was tall and thin with purple skin and large black eyes. He looked confused and frightened. "Why?" the alien asked. "Why are you attacking us? We followed proper protocols when we eliminated your colony." Webb felt his anger boiling over. "Proper protocols? You murdered 50,000 innocent people." "They were potential threats to Zephyrian expansion," the alien replied. "It was a strategic necessity." "Let me explain something to you," Webb said, his voice deadly calm. "Those weren't potential threats. They were farmers, teachers, children, and they were under our protection. The Zephyrian admiral seemed genuinely puzzled. But your species is weak. You avoid conflict. Our analysis showed you would protest through diplomatic channels but take no military action. Webb smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. Your analysis was wrong. On the planet below, the battle was turning into a rout. The Zephyrian ground forces, trained to fight against predictable alien tactics, couldn't cope with human urban warfare techniques. Major Parker's Marines moved through the city like a storm, destroying everything that could support the enemy war effort. "Sir," reported Captain Collins from his destroyer, "the Zephyrian fleet is trying to retreat." "Don't let them," Webb ordered. "I want every ship in this system destroyed or captured. If even one escapes, they'll warn the others about our capabilities." The human fleet spread out across the system, hunting down fleeing Zephyrian vessels. It wasn't a battle anymore. It was an execution. Commander Turner intercepted a transmission from a damaged Zephyrian ship trying to contact their homeworld. The message was simple: humans are not what we thought. Request immediate reinforcements. They fight like madmen. The transmission never reached its destination. Turner jammed it before it could leave the system. On the surface, Colonel Davis reached the planetary communication center. Inside, she found something that made her blood run cold. The Zephyrians had detailed plans for attacking 12 more human colonies. The next target was supposed to be Cedar Falls in just 2 weeks. "Admiral," Davis reported over the radio, "you need to see this. They were planning to kill 500,000 more people." Webb's expression darkened as he read the intercepted plans. The attack on New Haven really had been just the beginning. The Zephyrians had planned to systematically destroy every isolated human colony until humanity was too weak to resist total conquest. "Change of plans," Webb announced to his fleet. "We're not stopping here. We're going to visit every Zephyrian military base in this sector. We're going to destroy their ability to make war, and we're going to make sure they never threaten human space again." The battle for Zerion Prime was over in 6 hours. Every Zephyrian ship in the system had been destroyed or captured. The planet's military infrastructure was in ruins, but most importantly, the galaxy had learned something new about humanity. As Webb's fleet prepared to jump to their next target, he opened a channel to all ships. "Today we've shown the Zephyrians that there are consequences for murdering our people. But we're not done yet. They plan to kill 500,000 more humans. We're going to make sure they never get the chance." Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the radio from the Hammer. "Where to next, Admiral?" Webb looked at the star charts showing Zephyrian territory. "Sigma Draconis. They have shipyards there. Let's make sure they can't build any more ships to threaten our colonies." The human fleet jumped back into faster-than-light travel, leaving Zerion Prime burning behind them. The Zephyrian survivors would have quite a story to tell, if anyone bothered to listen. The humans had come to their strongest fortress and torn it apart in less than a day. And they were just getting started. News of the human victory at Zerion Prime spread across the galaxy, faster than Admiral Webb's fleet could travel. In the great halls of the Galactic Council, representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss something that had seemed impossible just days before. The Zephyrian hegemony was losing a war. Ambassador Susan Wright stood before the council, representing humanity for the first time since the war began. She was a small woman with gray hair, but her voice carried clearly through the vast chamber as she spoke to beings from across the galaxy. The Zephyrian hegemony murdered 50,000 innocent humans without provocation. Susan said calmly, "They plan to murder 500,000 more. My government's response has been proportional and justified." The Zephyrian representative, a tall alien with blue skin and too many arms, stood up angrily. "The humans attacked our fortress world without warning. They destroyed our ships and killed our soldiers. This is an act of unprovoked aggression." Susan smiled coldly. "Unprovoked? Your people turned an entire human city into glass. You killed children in their beds. You call that provoked?" Around the chamber, other alien representatives whispered among themselves. The Zephyrians had been the dominant military power in this sector for 300 years. Many species paid them tribute to avoid their anger. The idea that humans could actually defeat them seemed impossible. But the evidence was undeniable. Zerion Prime, the strongest Zephyrian fortress in the galaxy, had fallen in less than 6 hours. Most of their fleet in that system had been completely destroyed. The few surviving ships told stories of human tactics that defied conventional military wisdom. "The humans fight like they have nothing to lose," reported one Zephyrian ship captain to the council. "When their fighters take damage, they ram our ships instead of retreating. When their soldiers are outnumbered, they attack anyway. It's not logical." The representative from the Altarian Collective, a peaceful species of blue-skinned scientists, spoke up. "Perhaps logic is not their strength. Perhaps their strength is something else." Meanwhile, in Zephyrian space, Admiral Webb's fleet was proving the Altarian right. Captain Joe Mitchell led the assault on the Sigma Draconis shipyards where the Zephyrians built their largest warships. What the humans found there made them even angrier than before. "Admiral," Mitchell reported over the radio, "you need to see this. They weren't just building ships here. They were building invasion fleets specifically designed to attack human colonies." Webb studied the intelligence data that Dr. Peter Banks and his analysis team had gathered from the captured Zephyrian computers. The evidence was overwhelming. The Zephyrians had been planning to conquer human space for over 2 years. New Haven had been a test run for a much larger campaign. "How many ships were they building?" Webb asked. "Enough to hit every human colony simultaneously," Banks replied. "If we hadn't stopped them here, they could have wiped out humanity in a single coordinated strike." Webb felt his anger grow even hotter. The Zephyrians hadn't just wanted to kill some humans. They had wanted to commit genocide against his entire species. Well, now they would learn what humans did to genocidal enemies. "Destroy everything," Webb ordered. "Every ship, every building, every piece of equipment that could be used to build weapons. Leave nothing standing." The human fleet tore through the Sigma Draconis system like a hurricane. Captain Claire Rodriguez's heavy cruisers targeted the orbital shipyards, turning them into expanding clouds of debris. Major Tony Parker's Marines landed on the surface and systematically destroyed every factory, every warehouse, every facility that supported the Zephyrian war machine. The Zephyrian defenders fought desperately, but they were facing an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. Human soldiers didn't retreat when they took casualties. Human pilots didn't break off attacks when their ships were damaged. Human commanders made decisions based on emotion as much as logic, making them impossible to predict. "They're not fighting to win territory," observed a Zephyrian general as he watched his forces being systematically destroyed. "They're fighting to make sure we can never threaten them again." While Webb's main fleet was busy dismantling Zephyrian military power, other events were happening across the galaxy. Commander Linda Gray led a series of reconnaissance missions deep into Zephyrian territory, gathering intelligence about their remaining forces and capabilities. What she found surprised everyone. The Zephyrian hegemony wasn't as unified as it appeared. Several client species that had been forced to serve the Zephyrians were starting to rebel. The humans' unexpected victories had inspired other oppressed peoples to fight back. "The Corvin Mining Guild has declared independence from the hegemony," Gray reported. "The Falani Trade Federation is refusing to pay tribute anymore. 3 other species have cut off diplomatic relations with the Zephyrians." Webb smiled as he read Gray's report. The Zephyrians had built their empire through fear and intimidation. Now that someone had proven they could be beaten, that empire was falling apart. Back at the Galactic Council, Ambassador Wright was fielding questions from representatives who suddenly wanted to know more about humanity. Species that had barely acknowledged human existence a week ago were now very interested in establishing diplomatic relations. "Ambassador Wright," said the representative from the Centauri Republic, "perhaps it's time our species discussed a mutual defense treaty." "My government would be interested in such discussions," Wright replied diplomatically. But privately she was amused. A week ago the Centauri had considered humans to be primitive farmers who weren't worth talking to. The Zephyrian representative tried to interrupt. "The humans are dangerous. They don't follow the accepted rules of warfare. They're a threat to galactic stability." "The only threat to galactic stability," Wright said firmly, "was your plan to commit genocide against my people. You brought this war on yourselves." She activated a holographic display that showed the evidence human forces had captured from Zephyrian computers. The plans for attacking human colonies were detailed and thorough. The council members could see for themselves that the Zephyrians had been planning mass murder. These documents proved that the Zephyrian hegemony was planning to exterminate humanity. Wright continued. "My government's military response has been a defensive action to prevent genocide. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers as alien representatives studied the captured plans. Many of them realized that if the Zephyrians could plan to wipe out humanity, they might plan to attack other species as well. In deep space, Admiral Webb received a priority message from Earth. President Foster's face appeared on his screen. Looking tired but determined, "Admiral, how much longer do you think this war will last?" she asked. Webb considered the question carefully. "The Zephyrian military is broken, Madam President. Their main fleet bases are destroyed, their shipyards are in ruins, and their client species are rebelling. But they still have their homeworld and the core systems around it. Do you think they'll surrender?" "No," Webb said without hesitation. "They're too proud. They'll fight to the end rather than admit they were wrong to attack us." Foster nodded slowly. "Then finish it, Admiral. End this war in a way that ensures it never happens again." Webb understood what she meant. A negotiated peace would leave the Zephyrians in power, free to plan new attacks when humanity was distracted by other concerns. The only way to guarantee the safety of human colonies was to remove the Zephyrian threat permanently. "Yes, Madam President. We'll finish it." As Webb's fleet prepared for the final phase of the war, the galaxy watched and waited. In just 3 weeks, humanity had gone from being seen as weak and irrelevant to being the dominant military power in the sector. Other species were rapidly recalculating their relationships with both humans and Zephyrians. The Corvin Mining Guild formally requested human protection for their worlds. The Fulani Trade Federation offered to sell weapons and supplies to the human fleet. Even the powerful Andromedan Empire, which rarely got involved in local conflicts, sent a message expressing their interest in future diplomatic relations with humanity. The Zephyrians were learning a hard lesson about the price of genocide. But the lesson wasn't over yet. Admiral Webb's fleet was heading for their homeworld, and everyone in the galaxy knew what that meant. The war that the Zephyrians had started with the massacre at New Haven was about to end at their own front door. The human fleet arrived at Zephyria like an avenging angel, dark against the stars. Admiral Marcus Webb's armada had grown during the war as ships from every human colony joined the fight. What had started as 200 vessels was now over 400, including ships crewed by alien species who had thrown off Zephyrian rule. Admiral Webb stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, looking at the blue-green planet that had been the center of Zephyrian power for 500 years. Around Zephyria, the last remnants of the hegemony's fleet waited in defensive formation. They knew they couldn't win, but they were determined to make humanity pay a high price for victory. "Open a channel to the planet," Webb ordered. The main screen flickered, and the face of the Zephyrian Supreme Leader appeared. The alien was old and scarred, with the bearing of someone who had never expected to lose a war. "Human Admiral," the Supreme Leader said, his voice filled with hatred. "You have come far from your little farms and factories, but this is our homeworld. We will not surrender it." Webb nodded slowly. "I didn't expect you to. You couldn't surrender when we offered mercy at Zarian Prime. You couldn't negotiate when we destroyed your shipyards. You won't give up now. That's fine. We'll finish this the hard way." "You think you've won," the Supreme Leader snarled, "but destroying us will cost you everything. Your fleet will be broken. Your soldiers will die in the millions. Is your revenge worth that price?" "This isn't revenge," Webb replied calmly. "This is justice. And yes, it's worth any price." The communication ended and Webb turned to his fleet commanders. "All ships, begin the attack. Remember, we're not here to conquer. We're here to end the threat permanently." The space around Zephyria exploded into the largest battle in galactic history. The Zephyrian fleet fought with desperate courage, knowing they were defending their homeworld. But they were outnumbered and outgunned by an enemy that had spent months learning how to destroy them. Captain Sam Collins led his destroyer squadrons in a sweeping attack that broke through the Zephyrian defensive line. His ships moved with practiced efficiency, targeting enemy vessels' weak points and moving on before the Zephyrians could respond effectively. "All squadrons, focus on their command ships," Collins ordered. "Cut off their communications and coordination." Admiral Diana Ross, who had been promoted during the war, commanded the fleet's heavy cruisers. Her ships pounded the Zephyrian battle stations that protected the planet's orbital space. The stations were heavily armored and well defended, but human weapons had improved during the war. Captured Zephyrian technology, combined with human engineering, had created weapons that could punch through any defense. Target their reactor cores, Ross commanded. Let's light up the sky. One by one, the massive orbital stations exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The Zephyrian fleet was being systematically destroyed, but they continued fighting. Their pilots rammed their damaged ships into human vessels, copying the tactics that humans had used so effectively against them. "They're learning," observed Captain Claire Rodriguez as she watched a damaged Zephyrian cruiser crash into one of her escort ships. Too bad it's too late. The battle in space raged for 12 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The human fleet was too large, too experienced, and too angry to be stopped. When the last Zephyrian ship was destroyed, Webb turned his attention to the planet below. "General Cooper, begin the ground assault." General Matt Cooper had been planning this operation for weeks. Unlike the quick strikes at other Zephyrian worlds, the assault on Zephyria would be a grinding urban warfare campaign. The Zephyrians had turned their capital city into a fortress, and they were determined to fight for every street. "Remember," Cooper told his troops as the transport ships headed for the surface, "we're not here to massacre civilians. We're here to remove a government that committed genocide. Fight hard, but fight smart." The first wave of human Marines landed outside the capital city of Zephyros. The Zephyrian army was waiting for them, dug in behind defensive positions that had been built over decades. The aliens had learned from their defeats at other worlds, and they were using human tactics against the humans, but humans were better at human tactics than anyone else. Major Tony Parker led his battalion through the city's outer defenses using a combination of overwhelming firepower and unexpected movement. Instead of attacking the strongest points, his troops found weak spots in the defensive line and exploited them ruthlessly. "Don't try to break through their main defenses," Parker told his company commanders. "Go around them. Cut off their supply lines. Make them come to us." The battle for Zephyros lasted for 3 weeks. The Zephyrian defenders fought with the courage of desperation, knowing that defeat meant the end of their civilization. But human soldiers fought with something stronger than desperation. They fought with the memory of New Haven Colony. Every human in the invasion force had seen the recordings from Helen Brooks' final moments. They had heard her trying to surrender, begging for mercy for her people. They had seen the Zephyrian response: total extermination. Colonel Rachel Davis led the assault on the Supreme Leader's palace, the last stronghold of Zephyrian resistance. The building was a massive fortress that had never been taken by force, but it had never been attacked by humans before. "Bring down the walls," Davis ordered her engineers. "If we can't go through the front door, we'll make our own." Shaped charges and heavy artillery turned the palace walls into rubble. Human soldiers poured through the gaps, fighting room by room through the ancient building. The Zephyrian guards fought to the death, but they couldn't stop the inevitable. Admiral Webb himself led the final assault on the Supreme Leader's command center. The old alien was waiting for him, armed with an energy weapon and surrounded by his last loyal guards. "You've destroyed everything," the Supreme Leader said as human soldiers secured the room. 500 years of civilization gone. "You destroyed it when you decided to commit genocide," Webb replied. "You could have lived in peace with humanity. Instead, you chose to murder our children." The Supreme Leader raised his weapon, but Webb was faster. The alien leader fell, and with him the Zephyrian hegemony died. The war was over, but its consequences were just beginning. Across the galaxy, species that had been oppressed by the Zephyrians were declaring their independence. The balance of power that had existed for centuries was shifting, and humanity was at the center of the change. Ambassador Susan Wright found herself dealing with requests for alliance from dozens of species. The humans who had been ignored by the galactic community were now being courted by everyone. "The Corvin Mining Guild wants a mutual defense treaty," Wright reported to President Foster. "So do the Felani, the Altarians, and the Centauri Republic. Even the Andromedan Empire is interested in formal diplomatic relations." "What do you recommend?" Foster asked. "We be very careful," Wright replied. "We have more power now than we know what to do with. We need to use it wisely." Admiral Webb, now promoted to Supreme Commander of Human Forces, oversaw the establishment of new defense protocols. Every human colony would be protected by orbital defense platforms and patrol fleets. Never again would a place like New Haven be left defenseless. But more importantly, the galaxy had learned that humanity was not to be trifled with. The species that had been seen as weak farmers and traders had proven they could fight when pushed too far. The war memorial on New Haven was rebuilt as a monument to all who had died in the war. Admiral Webb spoke at the dedication ceremony, addressing representatives from across human space. "We didn't start this war," Webb said, looking out at the crowd. "We didn't want it. But when our families were threatened, when our children were murdered, we did what we had to do. We fought back." He paused, looking up at the memorial that listed the names of everyone who had died at New Haven Colony. The galaxy has learned something about humanity in these past months. They've learned that we are not just explorers or traders or diplomats. When our survival is at stake, when our loved ones are threatened, we become something else entirely. We become a force that the galaxy will never forget. The ceremony ended with a moment of silence for the dead. Above them, human patrol ships maintained their eternal watch, ready to respond to any threat. In the years that followed, the Zephyrian War would be remembered as the moment humanity stepped onto the galactic stage as a major power. But for those who had lived through it, it would always be remembered as the price of threatening human families. The colonies were safe. The children were protected, and the galaxy knew that humanity would fight to keep it that way.